Willow Creek was a small neighborhood in a quiet town. It was the kind of place where people knew each other's names. The streets were clean, the lawns were green, and the neighbors often stopped to chat while walking their dogs or watering their flowers. Life was calm and slow, just the way most people liked it. In this peaceful neighborhood lived a woman named Linda. She was known by almost everyone as the chairperson of the Homeowners Association, or HOA for short. The HOA was a group of people who made rules to keep the neighborhood looking nice. Linda took her job very seriously. Some people thought she cared a little too much about every little detail. Linda believed that rules were important. If someone didn't follow them, she felt it was her duty to make sure they did. She thought this was the best way to keep Willow Creek a beautiful and safe place for everyone. But sometimes, her strictness made others uncomfortable. One warm and sunny morning, Linda was walking down the street, holding a clipboard and checking on the neighborhood. She was looking at the houses to see if everything was in order. When she reached Mr. James's house, she stopped. Something caught her eye. There, in front of the house, was a small, handmade sign. It was bright and colorful. It said, "Lost dog, please help find Max." The sign had a picture of a small dog and a phone number for people to call if they saw him. Linda frowned. The sign was not something she liked. She knew that the HOA had rules about signs in the yard. According to those rules, no signs were allowed unless they were approved by the HOA. She thought the sign was ugly and made the street look messy. "This is a violation," Linda muttered to herself. She took out her phone and began writing a message to the HOA board. "Unauthorized sign at Mr. James's house," she typed. "We need to act quickly." Linda's mind was full of thoughts. She was certain that she had to make an example of this. If she let Mr. James keep the sign, others might start putting up signs too, and the neighborhood would lose its neat appearance. She believed the rules were there for a reason, and everyone should follow them. The next day, Linda visited Mr. James's house. She knocked firmly on the door. After a moment, the door opened, and Mr. James appeared. He was an older man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. He had lived in Willow Creek for many years and was well liked by his neighbors. "Good morning, Mr. James," Linda said, holding a folder in her hands. "I'm here on behalf of the HOA. We noticed the sign in your yard. Unfortunately, it is against the rules." Mr. James looked at the sign and then back at Linda. "Oh, yes, the sign for Max. He ran away 2 days ago. I put it up to ask for help to find him." Linda nodded but stayed serious. "I understand that, sir. But the HOA rules say that signs like this need approval. Since you did not get approval, this is a violation." Mr. James sighed. "I didn't know I needed approval. I thought this was just a temporary sign. Max is very important to me. He's like family." Linda's voice became firmer. "I'm sorry, but rules are rules. We have to enforce them to keep the neighborhood safe and beautiful." Mr. James looked confused. "What does that mean? What will happen now?" Linda opened her folder and pulled out a sheet of paper. "Because this is a violation, the HOA board has decided to fine you $50,000. Mr. James's eyes grew wide. $50,000? Are you serious? Linda nodded. Yes, sir. That is the amount stated in the HOA guidelines for unauthorized signs. Mr. James shook his head in disbelief. This is too much. It's just a sign to find my lost dog. Linda remained calm but firm. I am just following the rules, Mr. James. The conversation ended there. Linda left the house with her clipboard and folder, feeling she had done her job. But inside, she felt a small knot of doubt. Was she being too harsh? No, she told herself. The rules were clear. If she did not enforce them, everything would fall apart. Word about the fine spread quickly through Willow Creek. Neighbors talked in whispers. Some agreed with Linda, saying that rules were important to keep the neighborhood nice. Others thought $50,000 was too much for a small sign, especially one put up for a good reason. That evening, a small group of neighbors gathered at the park. They talked about the fine and what it meant for the community. Sarah, a mother of 2 children, said, "Linda is just trying to keep things in order. We all have to follow the rules." But Tom, who lived a few houses down from Mr. James, said, "That fine is ridiculous. It's not right to punish someone so harshly when they are only trying to help." The group didn't reach an answer. But one thing was clear, the peaceful neighborhood was about to face something new. A conflict that would test the community and everyone's ideas about rules, kindness, and fairness. Meanwhile, Mr. James sat quietly in his living room, staring at the sign that still hung in his yard. He hoped his lost dog would come home soon. And he wondered how a small sign could cause such a big problem. After Linda handed Mr. James the shocking notice about the $50,000 fine, the whole neighborhood seemed to buzz with whispers and worries. People who had never really thought about the HOA rules before suddenly found themselves talking about them at every chance. The fine was so big that it felt like a heavy cloud hanging over Willow Creek. Mr. James sat on his porch, holding the notice in his hands and staring at it as if it were a puzzle he couldn't solve. How could a small sign asking for help to find a lost dog cost so much money? The thought made him anxious. He loved Max, his small dog, and just wanted him to come home safe. Now, this fine felt like a punishment for caring. But Mr. James was a calm and careful man. He knew he had to do something. So, the next morning, he called a lawyer friend of his and asked for advice. The lawyer explained that the HOA had rules, and yes, sometimes they could fine people, but $50,000 was very unusual for such a small issue. "Maybe there's some mistake," the lawyer said. "Or maybe the fine is meant to scare you. You should ask for a clear explanation in writing and see if you can talk to the HOA board." With this advice, Mr. James felt a little stronger. He wanted to understand everything clearly. So, he wrote a polite letter to Linda, asking for details about the fine, why it was so high, and if there was any way to reduce it. Linda received the letter and read it carefully. She was surprised that Mr. James was asking questions instead of just paying the fine or ignoring it. Linda was a person who liked order, and she wanted things to be clear and official. So, she prepared a long letter back, full of quotes from the HOA rules and details about the fines. She explained that the HOA had strict rules to keep the neighborhood neat and beautiful. The rules said that any unauthorized sign could lead to a fine up to $50,000. She added that the board voted to give Mr. James the highest fine because he did not remove the sign after the first warning. The letter sounded serious and final. Linda felt confident that she was doing the right thing. She believed that strict rules made the community better. If people ignored the rules, the neighborhood would become messy and less safe. But when the neighbors read the letter, many felt confused and upset. Why was a lost dog sign treated like a big crime? Several neighbors started talking more openly about Linda and the HOA. Some wondered if Linda was being too harsh. One afternoon, Sarah and Tom met again at the park. Sarah said, "I understand rules are important, but this feels wrong." Maybe Linda should use kindness, not just fines. Tom nodded. Yes, and I think the rules should be fair. Nobody wants the neighborhood to be messy, but this fine is scary. It makes people afraid to help each other. Meanwhile, Linda prepared for the next HOA board meeting. She was ready to explain the fine and support the rules. But deep down, she felt a small worry. She was beginning to see how upset people were becoming. On the day of the meeting, the community center was full. Many neighbors came to listen and share their thoughts. Mr. James stood up first. He spoke calmly but with feeling. I put up the sign because Max, my dog, ran away, he said. I didn't know I needed permission. I never wanted to break rules. This fine is too big and hurts me and my family. Linda replied firmly. The rules are the same for everyone. If we don't follow them, the neighborhood will lose its beauty and order. I want to protect Willow Creek. Then, something surprising happened. Officer Daniel, a local police officer, walked in and stood near Mr. James. Daniel had been Mr. James's friend for many years. The room became quiet. Daniel looked at Linda and said, "She's my boss." The room was silent again, confused by the words. Daniel explained that Linda was his supervisor in a special HOA security group. She worked hard to keep the neighborhood safe. But he also said, we need to find a way to solve this problem without making the neighborhood worse. The meeting changed after that. People started talking more openly. Some neighbors thanked Linda for her work but asked if the rules could be softer sometimes. Others asked Mr. James if he had ideas to help. Linda listened carefully for the first time. She saw how much the neighbors cared about the community and about each other. She felt that maybe she had been too strict without thinking about people's feelings. After the meeting, the neighbors began to come together. Some offered to help Mr. James search for Max. Others talked about how the HOA rules could change to be more fair and kind. The $50,000 fine was still on the table, but now it was clear that the community wanted a better way, one that balanced rules and compassion. Mr. James felt hope for the first time in days. Maybe Max would come home. Maybe the neighborhood could stay beautiful without hurting people. And Linda? She started to wonder if being a good leader meant more than just enforcing rules. Maybe it meant listening and understanding, too. The storm was only beginning, but the first signs of change were already there in Willow Creek. After the heated HOA meeting, the peaceful neighborhood of Willow Creek felt different. The usual calm was replaced by whispers and quiet disagreements. People who had once smiled and waved now avoided each other's eyes or spoke in low voices. The conflict between Linda and Mr. James had split the community into two groups. On one side were the people who supported Linda. They believed that rules were important and must be followed to keep Willow Creek beautiful and orderly. On the other side were those who stood with Mr. James. They thought the $50,000 fine was too harsh and unfair for a small, kind gesture like putting up a lost dog sign. Sarah, a mother who lived near the park, felt torn. She understood why Linda wanted to keep the neighborhood neat, but she also felt sorry for Mr. James and his lost dog. One evening, as she watched her children play, she wondered how the neighborhood had changed so quickly. Why can't we all just get along? Sarah thought quietly. Meanwhile, Linda was busy preparing for the next HOA board meeting. She believed that she was protecting the neighborhood by enforcing the rules strictly. To her, a community was a place where everyone followed the same guidelines, no matter how small the problem seemed. That way, everything stayed perfect. Linda met with some board members who agreed with her. They said, if we allow exceptions, the whole neighborhood will lose control. People will stop caring about the rules. They reminded her that many families had moved to Willow Creek because of its clean streets and beautiful homes. At the same time, Mr. James talked to some neighbors who wanted to help. Tom, who lived a few houses down, said, "We should stand together and ask the HOA to be fair. No one wants the neighborhood to be messy, but $50,000 is too much." Mr. James nodded. "I just want to find Max and keep peace with my neighbors." The tension in the neighborhood grew, and the next HOA meeting was expected to be even more crowded than the last one. On the day of the meeting, the community center was packed. Everyone wanted to hear what would happen next. Linda began by explaining the importance of the rules and how they helped keep Willow Creek beautiful and safe. Then Mr. James spoke again. His voice was calm but steady. "I understand the rules, but this fine is too much. I didn't know I needed permission for a small, temporary sign. I asked the HOA to reconsider." Several neighbors nodded and clapped quietly, showing their support. Linda felt the eyes of the community on her. Some were angry, others were sad. She realized that this was more than just about a sign or a fine. It was about trust and respect between neighbors. Suddenly, Officer Daniel stood up. He had been silent during much of the meeting, but now he spoke clearly. "I want to say something important. Linda is my boss in the HOA security team. She works hard to keep this neighborhood safe. But sometimes, we must remember that people's feelings matter, too." The room was quiet as Daniel's words sank in. Linda looked at Daniel and then at the neighbors. She thought about the many conversations she had ignored before. She had focused on rules, but not on the people who lived under them. After a pause, Linda said softly, "Maybe I have been too strict. Maybe the rules need to be fairer and kinder. I want to work with all of you to find a solution that respects both the rules and the people." A wave of relief spread across the room. People smiled, and some wiped tears from their eyes. Tom stood up and said, "We want to help. Let's work together, not fight. We all want Willow Creek to be a happy home." That night, as the meeting ended, neighbors began to talk and share ideas. Linda and Mr. James even shook hands. It was the first sign that maybe, just maybe, they could find common ground. But the road ahead was still long. Changing the HOA rules would take time. And Max was still missing. As the neighbors left the community center, a quiet hope filled the air. They had faced a challenge that divided them but had also brought them closer. Willow Creek was no longer just a neighborhood with rules, it was a community learning to listen and care. Mr. James looked up at the sky and whispered, "I hope Max will come home soon." Linda walked slowly to her car, thinking about what she had learned. She realized that being a leader was not just about rules, but about people. And that lesson was worth more than any fine. The days after the big HOA meeting were quieter, but the tension in Willow Creek still lingered. Neighbors whispered behind closed doors, and some avoided crossing paths. Linda, though, was determined to find a way to bring the neighborhood back together. Mr. James continued to search for Max, putting up new flyers and talking to people around town. The little dog had been missing for nearly a week now, and each day felt longer than the last. His worry showed in his eyes, but he stayed strong because he knew the community was watching. One afternoon, Linda was organizing paperwork in her small home office when she got an unexpected phone call. It was Officer Daniel. "Linda, can we meet? I have something important to tell you," he said. Linda was curious and agreed. They arranged to meet at the community center later that day. When they sat down, Daniel looked serious but calm. "Linda, I want to be honest with you," he began. "There's something about this whole situation you might not know." Linda raised an eyebrow, wondering what he meant. Daniel continued, "I've been your supervisor for some time, but I also know the neighborhood well. I want to help you see things from a different side." Linda listened closely, realizing this was more than just a simple conversation. Daniel took a deep breath and said, "You know how we've been strict about the rules to keep order. But sometimes, rules need to be balanced with understanding. Like in Mr. James's case." Linda nodded slowly, thinking about the lost dog sign and the huge fine. "Here's the twist," Daniel said with a small smile. "Mrs. Linda, you are not just an HOA chairperson. You are my boss. At the local police department, you're my supervisor for the Neighborhood Watch program." Linda blinked, surprised. She had never thought about that part of her job this way. Daniel continued, "Because you're my boss, I want you to know I respect your work. But I also want to remind you that leadership means more than rules. It means helping people, too." Linda sat back and smiled faintly. For the first time, she felt a little relief. Maybe she didn't have to be so strict all the time. That same evening, Daniel offered to join the search for Max. He wanted to show the community that the police and the HOA could work together. Word spread fast. Neighbors felt hopeful. Maybe this was the sign of better days. The next morning, Linda visited Mr. James's house. She carried some flyers with Max's picture and a small gift for him, a new dog collar. Mr. James was surprised to see her. "I wanted to help," Linda said softly. "I'm sorry about the fine and all the trouble. Let's find Max together." Mr. James smiled, feeling warmth in his heart. "Thank you, Linda. That means a lot." Together, they planned a neighborhood search. Volunteers signed up to help, and Daniel organized the effort with the local police. The day of the search, the community came alive. People walked the streets, calling out Max's name. Children held signs, and neighbors shared food and water for the volunteers. Linda watched as the community worked side by side, forgetting their differences for a moment. It was a beautiful sight, neighbors united by hope and kindness. As the sun began to set, a shout rang out from near the park. A small, brown dog with bright eyes ran toward the group. It was Max. Mr. James ran forward, tears of joy streaming down his face. He hugged Max tightly, grateful beyond words. Linda smiled and felt a warm feeling inside. This moment was more important than any rule or fine. It was about community, care, and second chances. That night, at a small gathering in the community center, neighbors celebrated. They shared stories, laughter, and plans to make Willow Creek a better place. Linda stood and spoke. "This experience has taught me a lot. Rules help us, but kindness and understanding help us even more. I promise to listen better and work with all of you." The neighbors cheered, and for the first time in a long time, Willow Creek felt like a true community again. Linda and Mr. James looked at each other and nodded. They had both learned something valuable. Sometimes, the strongest leaders are those who can change their minds and open their hearts. After the joyful reunion with Max, Willow Creek began to feel like home again. The fear and tension that had divided the neighborhood slowly melted away, replaced by a new sense of hope. But Linda knew that one moment of kindness wasn't enough to fix everything. The community needed more than a celebration, they needed real change. The next day, Linda sat at her kitchen table, looking over the HOA rule book. It was thick and full of complicated language about fines, signs, and property rules. For years, the book had been her guide, and she had followed it strictly. But now, she saw that it didn't show the whole story. Linda thought about the people in Willow Creek, their hopes, their worries, and their kindness. She realized the rules needed to be clearer, fairer, and kinder. She decided to bring this idea to the next HOA meeting. Meanwhile, Mr. James was busy too. After Max's return, he received kind messages from neighbors. Some had brought food, others stopped by just to say hello. For the first time in a long time, he felt truly part of the community again. One afternoon, Mr. James stopped by Linda's house with a small notebook. "Linda, I've been thinking," he said gently. "What if we work together to change the rules? Maybe we can make a committee, neighbors who help decide what's fair." Linda smiled. "That's a great idea, James. We need everyone's voice." Together, they sent out letters to the neighbors, inviting them to join the new committee. The response was better than they expected. People who had been quiet before suddenly wanted to help. They wanted a neighborhood where everyone felt safe and respected. At the next meeting, the community center was filled with people eager to share their ideas. Linda began the meeting by saying, "I know the rules have caused problems. But today, we start fresh. We will work together to build bridges, not walls." One by one, neighbors spoke. Sarah shared her story about how the lost dog sign meant more than a rule to her family. It was about kindness and community support. Tom suggested making rules about signs simpler, especially for temporary ones like lost pets or garage sales. Officer Daniel, standing quietly at the back, added, "Safety is important, but so is trust. We want to protect our neighborhood, but also protect the people who live here." Linda listened carefully to every voice. She took notes and promised that the new committee would meet often to review the rules and find ways to improve. Over the next few weeks, the committee worked hard. They met in homes, at coffee shops, and in the community center. They talked about what rules made sense and which ones felt too harsh. They looked for ways to make the neighborhood better without making people afraid. One important change they made was about signs. They agreed that temporary signs for lost pets, community events, or important messages should be allowed without big fines. Instead, neighbors would just need to tell the HOA first. They also created a new way to handle fines. Instead of large amounts that could hurt people, the committee suggested smaller fines, warnings, and chances to fix mistakes before any money was asked. Linda felt proud. She saw the neighborhood coming together, not just as rules on paper but as real people working as a team. One sunny afternoon, the HOA committee organized a neighborhood picnic. Families came with food, children played games, and neighbors talked and laughed. The picnic was a big success, a symbol of the new Willow Creek. Mr. James stood by the grill, smiling as Max ran happily between the tables. He looked around and said softly, "This is the Willow Creek I remember. A place of kindness and community." Linda joined him and nodded. "We've come a long way, James. And there's still more to do." The picnic ended with a small ceremony where Linda and the committee thanked everyone for their hard work. She held up the new rulebook, simpler, kinder, and fairer. "This book is not just rules," Linda said. "It's a promise. A promise that Willow Creek will always be a place where neighbors care for each other." As the sun set, the neighbors said their goodbyes, feeling closer than ever. Linda and Mr. James stood together, knowing that the neighborhood's future was brighter because they chose to listen, to change, and to grow. And in the distance, Max barked happily, reminding everyone that even the smallest things, a lost dog, a sign, or a smile, can bring a whole community together. The success of the neighborhood picnic marked a new chapter for Willow Creek. For the first time in months, the community felt united. The hard work of Linda, Mr. James, and their neighbors was starting to show real results. The new, friendlier rules made the neighborhood more welcoming, and the trust between neighbors was growing stronger every day. Linda woke up one bright morning feeling hopeful. She had been working late most nights with the committee, and though it was tiring, she knew the changes were worth it. Today, the HOA board was scheduled to vote on officially adopting the new rule book. It was a big moment. At the community center, chairs were arranged in a circle instead of rows. This was intentional. Linda wanted the meeting to feel open and relaxed, not formal or tense. She smiled as neighbors arrived, some bringing coffee, others carrying children, all chatting happily. Mr. James arrived early, carrying Max on a leash. The dog wagged his tail excitedly, sensing the energy in the air. Linda stood at the front, feeling both nervous and proud. She cleared her throat and began, "Thank you all for being here. Today, we're not just voting on rules, we're voting on our future. We want Willow Creek to be a place where kindness and respect guide us, along with fairness." Neighbors nodded, some whispering to each other with smiles. Linda continued, "The new rules reflect our conversations, our concerns, and our hopes. I want to thank everyone who helped make this possible." She handed out copies of the new rule book. It was shorter than before, written in simple language, with clear guidelines for signs, fines, and communication. Most importantly, it emphasized respect for neighbors and second chances. The vote began. Hands went up one by one. The room filled with quiet excitement. When the count was done, the result was clear: unanimous approval. Linda took a deep breath. "Thank you. This is a new beginning." After the meeting, neighbors stayed to talk. Some shared stories of how the new rules already made their lives easier. Others suggested ideas for future community projects. Linda listened, feeling grateful. She had once believed that rules were the most important thing. Now she knew that rules were only helpful when they brought people together, not pushed them apart. Mr. James approached her with Max by his side. "Linda, I want to thank you. For listening, for changing, for caring. Willow Creek is better because of you." Linda smiled, touched by his words. "Thank you, James. I couldn't have done it without everyone's support." As the days passed, the neighborhood continued to heal. The small acts of kindness, the friendly waves, the shared cups of sugar, the helping hands became the new normal. One evening, as Linda walked her dog through the quiet streets, she saw Mr. James tending to his garden. He looked up and waved. Linda waved back, feeling a deep sense of belonging. Nearby, children played safely, and neighbors talked on porches. Willow Creek was alive again, not just with houses, but with hearts. Linda thought about the journey they had taken. From a harsh $50,000 fine to a community united by respect and understanding. It had been a hard road, but the destination was worth every step. And in that moment, Linda knew something important: leadership was not about being perfect or strict. It was about being willing to listen, to learn, and to grow. Willow Creek was no longer just a neighborhood with rules. It was a home built on trust, kindness, and the courage to change. And that was the greatest beginning of all. Months passed since the big changes in Willow Creek. The neighborhood had transformed into a place where everyone felt welcome and safe. The fights over rules and fines were now stories people told with smiles, lessons learned and friendships made. Linda stood at her front door one quiet morning, sipping coffee and watching the world wake up. Birds sang softly, and the sun's warm light touched every house on the street. She felt calm and proud. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Mr. James. Max found a new friend. Linda smiled and replied, "That's wonderful. Max deserves the best." Their friendship had grown strong during the difficult times, and now they often checked in on each other. The community had helped them both, and that made everything better. One afternoon, the neighborhood held its first annual Willow Creek Day. It was a celebration of everything they had worked for: the kindness, the unity, and the shared hope. Families set up tables with food and games, and the local band played cheerful music. Linda gave a short speech. Willow Creek is more than just houses and lawns. It's a place where people care for each other. We've learned that rules are important, but kindness is the heart of our community. The crowd cheered. Mr. James brought Max up front, and the dog happily wagged his tail as the children petted him. As the day went on, neighbors shared stories. Sarah talked about how she felt safe letting her children play outside now. Tom explained how he and other neighbors started a weekly cleanup to keep the streets beautiful. Officer Daniel smiled, proud to be part of a neighborhood that worked together. Linda watched the laughter and joy around her. It was a reminder of how far they had come. She thought about the moment when she first tried to enforce the huge fine and how much that had changed. That night, as the sun set, Linda sat on her porch with a notebook. She began writing ideas for the future: more community events, better communication, and ways to help neighbors in need. Suddenly, a knock came at her door. It was Mr. James, holding a small box. "I wanted to give you this," he said, smiling. Linda opened the box and found a small wooden plaque. It read, "To Linda, a leader with heart." Tears filled her eyes. "Thank you, James. That means more than you know." He nodded. "You showed us all that true leadership is about: listening and caring. Willow Creek is lucky to have you." Linda looked around at her peaceful neighborhood. She realized that every person mattered: their voices, their kindness, and their willingness to change. From the lost dog sign to a new beginning, the story of Willow Creek was one of hope and heart. It showed that even the hardest problems could be solved when people came together. And so, Willow Creek continued to grow, not just as a neighborhood of houses, but as a family of friends. Linda whispered softly, "This is home." And in that moment, the heart of Willow Creek beat strong and steady, forever.